Julia does.
So unnecessary. Let's see, is it 7:15 yet? How many people do I have in the bar line?
14.
Do we have a sound? Yeah? Hey guys. Hey. How are you?
Hey.
How's it going? My name is Patty. If you don't know me, I'm the the sound is working online too. Okay. Oops. Welcome. My name is Patty. I'm the founder and executive director of Chicago for Chicagoans. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are all volunteer run. Our staff are volunteers, but we pay our lecturers if they like, because we care a lot about making sure we're providing a place for passionate Chicagoans to share the history of their city with their fellow city residents. And we also make sure that we don't charge anything to attend our events, because we really believe people should be able to learn more about the history of their city, regardless of how much money they have in their pocket. So that's our mission. That's a little bit about us. We do lectures in the winter. We do walking tours in the summer. So stay tuned. In approximately 2 to 3 months, you'll see a full lineup for all of those. We'll work on that behind the scenes. I'm stalling for time while the rest of the people in the back collect their beverages. So let's see, what else can I talk about? Well, I can talk about our lecture series this year. So we do a different theme every single year. This year, our theme is Gone But Not Forgotten. So we've had all of our speakers try to come up with a topic that addresses something that used to be very prevalent in Chicago history, but is not so known about or talked about today. So today's topic fits into this perfectly, and I will get to what it is. Spoiler alert, we're talking about Playboy. Everyone now associates it with LA, of course, but the origins are here in Chicago, so we're going to talk about that. This is our most sold out in-person event. By a very narrow margin over brothels. So I guess even in history, sex does sell. Love it. Thank you guys for coming out. Of course, it's also international, national, I don't know. We're celebrating Women in March. What up? We're a women-run organization. Everyone from myself to our board are all women, and we love it because we love history. And then we have Anthony. We love him too. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and wrap up what I'm saying here today. But yeah, we're very excited to have our speaker. You know her. You love her. If you come here in person, she's the one who's usually accosting you with a hole punch and demanding to know if you've brought your frequent flyer card, which if you're watching online, come in person. We'll give you one of these. Look, it says certified history lover. It has 6 places to perfectly place a hole punch. I usually miss. And then I hear about it from Olivia. Yeah. But she's wonderful. She's been one of our most dedicated volunteers for many years now. She recently joined our volunteer staff as our new marketing person. So please direct all of your internet DMs to Chicago for Chicagoans and tag her, because I'm not looking at those anymore. Kidding. But if you want to slide into our DMs with some hot history recs, Olivia's the one that will be messaging you back now. But we're really excited to have her aboard, and extra excited to have her speak with you today. Olivia did our Tour Guide 101 program last summer, and 2 summers ago, we actually have had several of our cohort give lectures this season. Next week, we actually will have Emma. She did our program last summer. So we're all about not just getting Chicagoans to feel comfortable talking about the history of their own city, but we also train you to do it and feel comfortable to talk to people up here. It can be kind of scary, but we're here to train you. So keep an eye out for tour guide trainings as well. Now just about everybody has drinks, so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hand it over to Olivia. So make sure you give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. We good? Hi, everyone. Ooh, Patty, we're like the same height in our torso. That's great. Also, shout out to everyone watching at home. Great to connect to you this way. So welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. Like Patty mentioned, we're discussing Playboy tonight, specifically Playboy Enterprises and how it rise and fell on the shores of Lake Michigan. Ooh, good reactions. I appreciate that. So Playboy Enterprises was started as a men's lifestyle magazine, and it was started by a man named Hugh Hefner. This was in 1953. Hugh grew up, as he liked to be called, grew up in the Galewood neighborhood at 1922 North New England Avenue. That is the first slide in your packet, or if you're watching at home, you have the QR code as well. And the house looks pretty much the same as it did when Hefner grew up there. And if you look from Cook County records, his mother Grace sold it in 1985. And since then, there's only been 2 names. I mean, several people have switched hands according to the records, but there's only 2 last names. So I'm guessing it's still a family residence, but you know, it's one woman's guess. So Hefner grew up in this house, he went to high school, and then he fell in love with just one woman. Mildred Millie Williams and Hef married in the 1940s, and like many young folks today, lived at home with mom and dad, raised some capital, and then got their own place at 6052 South Harper Avenue. So this is their first marital home. It's an apartment. And it was near Jackson Park and the Museum of Science and Industry, which opened in 1933, so just about 20 years earlier. So totally feasible that they'd have a nice little walk down there. At the time, Hef had a job as a copywriter for Esquire magazine. He had learned to really enjoy writing for his high school newspaper. He was also a cartoonist and enjoyed working for Esquire, but like most Chicagoans, he wanted to stay in Chicago. And when Esquire decided, we're out to the Big Apple, he decided to stay here. There's also a rumor that he might have missed out on a $5 raise, which in 1953, $5 did. It meant a little bit of something. So he decided to stay in Chicago. So for his next venture, he wanted to tap into his creative side and really stretch his wings that he felt like he had grown in high school, working with drama club and also working on the newspaper. So that's where the idea of a men's lifestyle magazine was born. See, Hef was more into the jazz lifestyle. He really wanted a more classy men's lifestyle magazine versus hunting, guns, and beer. He really wanted to focus on what a bachelor could do in this new modern age in America. And so he put a card table in Millie's living room and got writing. So with some articles from the public domain, as well as cartoons drawn by him, he put together the first edition of Playboy. But Playboy, as we know today, is nothing without its centerfold. And so for that, he turned to a young starlet who, before she reached fame, was in desperate need of cash. See, Norma Jean had a really hard upbringing. And she posed for some photos, and they were pretty much mostly nude photos. And by the time she had adopted the name Marilyn Monroe and reached celebrity status, she was not aware of these photos still being available. They were kind of done for her. So much to her surprise and her team's was when they reappeared in a national publication with no heads up, no permission, no consent. So this is going to be the first of many times. We're going to talk about the good and the bad, all right? So consent is important, absolutely. Marilyn Monroe was a sex icon, but it wasn't necessarily with her heads up ahead of time. So with that, Hef produced 70,000 copies, of which 80% sold. Pretty good. And he didn't put the date on it. It came out in December 1953, but Hef wasn't totally sure if it was going to take off. But that first edition of Playboy did very well. And by 1 year later, in 1954, December circulation was up to 154,000. Now, the actual apartment, because we're still at 6052 South Harper, the actual apartment isn't there anymore. It's a parking lot. But you can see in your slides the picture of Hef at the card table writing that first edition of Playboy. And it was a hot off the presses success. So by 1954, he was ready to move to his first office. So moving up to the north side, specifically 11 East Superior Street. This is where the first offices for Playboy opened their doors, across the street from Holy Name Cathedral.
Right.
You get a little bit of everything on the north side, you know? So this was January of 1954, so almost exactly a year later. It started off with one floor, but quickly grew to the whole building, all 4 floors. Now this is the first time we see the blend of work-life balance. Hefner stopped going home because home became the office. Yeah. So Playboy is the publication where we first get the term bachelor pad. The idea that young men could go out and move out of their parents' home, live on their own, and then later get married and maybe live with their wife. I say maybe because Hef was promoting this lifestyle, essentially making this lifestyle so well known and living it, but he had a wife and kids at home that he wasn't really spending time with. Millie, their daughter, Christy, and then their son moved up to a nice apartment on the north side. They definitely, did well with the hard work of Hefner, but he just wasn't home as much. And we start seeing that when he moved to the offices at 11 East Superior. So the original building was heavily renovated. You can see a picture in your packet. The first level is now a nail salon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, John Finley, you've been there, right? Yeah, for sure. Second level are apartments, and it still looks across to Holy Name Cathedral. So, and you'll notice several photos in the slides tonight. I took them this weekend to try to give you, yes, that was fun, just give you the most up-to-the-minute, updates of what's happening and what everything looks like today. So, Playboy is really hitting its stride. Its circulation hits 1 million per month, and they're ready for their second official offices. And that's when they moved to 232 East Ohio Street. So this was an interesting location to pick. I mean, it's great. It's central. It's Streeterville. It's right next door to the Mies van der Rohe offices at 230 East Ohio Street. Mies van der Rohe's designs very much resonated with Hefner. He referenced them when he was talking about his Playboy lifestyle, bachelor lifestyle. Slip of the tongue. Major renovations were done to this office to officially put in a residence for Hef. It was very much set in stone and understood that he was spending 99% of his time at the office, which was then his home. So something to keep in mind too, I'll just touch on this very quickly. He did have a family at home, as did several higher-ups that he brought into the company. So it was very much, there were bachelors working at Playboy, but there are also men living the bachelor lifestyle that had left a family back at home. So the good with the bad. So this building is where the first women came to apply to be bunnies. Yes. So Playboy Bunny was a woman who was employed to work at the Playboy clubs. They wore the iconic leotard with the stockings, the collars, the ears, and that uniform was designed by. That one was an accident. It was designed by Zelda. Apologies if this isn't quite right. Valdez. She is a Cuban African-American woman who designed the costume. So, yay, Women's History Month. Yeah. It featured a tight bodice to the point where it was fitted to the woman, and no two bunnies could technically you couldn't comfortably wear a Playboy bunny costume, period. But they were made to the exact measurements of the woman wearing it, and then taken in 2 inches.
Oh. No.
Yeah. Gloria Steinem reported when she went undercover as a bunny in one of the New York clubs, she talked about how it cut into her so tight she had swelling and bruises on her body from wearing that for 6 hours at a time. Also, every bunny stuffed. No shame, body positivity, big thing here, but there was a lot of stuffing going into that very tight bodice. I won't say where. Okay. So this building today, you'll see in your slides, and if you go in person, looks a little abandoned. Wasn't quite sure I was in the right place, but according to Google Maps, it is not abandoned. It is the Chicago Recording Company. So, Playboy continues to rise. The Hef Playboy bachelor lifestyle is really hitting its heyday, and it's 1959. And we're ready to go to the original Playboy Mansion. And this is at 1340 North State Parkway, which was the password this evening. Yes, it was the password this evening. So this Playboy Mansion was the first. It then was known as Playboy East because Hefner had opened up a second Playboy Mansion in LA. But for a long time, it was just this building in the Gold Coast. The building itself was completed in 1899 and designed by James Gable Rogers. The original layout had over 70 rooms. And the first owner was George Snow Isham, who was a society doctor. And he had purchased the building for $100,000 in 1899. Yeah, and an early visitor to that mansion was Theodore Roosevelt himself. So it was a well-established home in Chicago before Playboy moved in. Now, during the Great Depression, like many prominent buildings of the day, it was sold and subdivided. So it became a lot of different things in one building. But by the 1940s, a parking lot tycoon had bought the building and wanted to restore it to its former grandeur. So he combined it and brought it back to what it pretty much was before when it was built in 1899. At this point, it was ready to be sold to Playboy. But Hefner had some must-haves for his new home. You know, when we move, some of us just want a dishwasher, you know. Maybe an in-unit washer-dryer for really feeling fancy, or we're in the suburbs. No shame, suburbs are great. Hef had something very specific in mind, and he had to shop around for it, and that was an in-ground indoor pool in the basement. So he looked at several. Oh no, for sure. So he looked at several buildings. The city kept saying, no, definitely not, definitely not. The city wasn't so sure about him. You know, a sex icon in 1959, that's pretty scandalous. So, but finally, they found the place at 1340 North State Parkway, and the city made a compromise. If the pool was considered personal use and not commercial use, it was fine. So Hef got the pool for a low price of $400,000. That was for the mansion itself, not just the pool. Just the mansion itself was $400,000. I realized that was misleading. But by today's money, that's $4.1 million. So it's a Gold Coast mansion, guys. What are you going to pay for it? That sounds, that sounds average. So in addition to adding the pool, Hefner also added secret doors, a little peeping Tom window into the pool. And he also added sun and steam rooms, a bowling alley, a game room, and a full-size movie projector because he was quite the movie buff. I'm going to pause here and share. We'll have questions at the end, folks. Don't worry. We have so much time for questions. Quick little anecdote. So we have several folks here who are alumni of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And eventually, spoiler alert, there are dorms that go into this building after Hefner vacates it for SAIC. And one of the professors taught a fashion course in the pool. And also, there were so many secret compartments and like buttons and stuff you could press. Some of the students pressed a button and doors open and there were Playboy bunny costumes. But this is not just that, but these are, heavily copyrighted entities. Like, you can't just go out and buy an actual Playboy bunny costume because they're physically made to every woman who wore it. But the bunnies and the playmates that wore them didn't own them. They weren't allowed to keep them. It was considered a huge honor if Hefner and Playboy let you keep your Playboy bunny costume. So the fact that some, not just one, multiple were forgotten, I hope I'm not getting anyone in trouble because we are streaming to the World Wide Web, but that's an oversight, folks. Big oversight, but also very cool. Okay, so back Thank you. So back to 1959. So one of the additional cool things that Hefner put in this building was his bedroom, specifically his bed. So he was known for wanting to work out of the bedroom. He was an early adopter of what we all did during COVID, all right? You know, let's think of it this way. So the bed was a circle, and it could rotate, right? So there's a video interview, and he's like, you know, if it's facing this way, it's the office, we're working. But if I turn it like 25 degrees, I'm facing the room, and it's a party. Turn another 25 degrees, I'm facing the fireplace. Intimate. I leave it there. So,
Just like COVID.
yes, just like COVID. So the mansion also includes dormitories on the 3rd and 4th floors, and these were reserved for the women working either as bunnies at the clubs, or they were models in the early days of the Playboy modeling agency. Rent was $50 a month. No male visitors were allowed, and neither was alcohol, unless it was offered by Hef. So, in researching this talk, I read many articles, and I specifically sought out ones of women who worked for Playboy, either as a bunny, as a playmate, or corporate. And the overarching themes for the women that worked as bunnies and as playmates that was touched upon or hinted was infantilization. So in 1959, women couldn't have a credit card, they couldn't have a banking account, our career options were extremely limited. And infantilization was very much, and still is very much, a common theme of women in the workforce. So while it's great, we have jobs for these women that, you know, they can work outside the home, but there's still that overarching theme of control from Playboy / Hefner. On a lighter note, they had great parties. Guys, these were really good parties. There were themes, we were dressing up. And they had amazing guests. So Norman Mailer was one of them, Barbra Streisand, Sammy Davis Jr., every single one of the Rolling Stones. And like any eccentric, you know, businessman who starts a lifestyle magazine, he had a poet living in his basement. It just happened to be Shel Silverstein. How that influenced his children's poems, I'm sure there's an article about that I haven't found. Questions we all have. So starting in 1971, Hef started to spend more and more time at the LA mansion, and this was known as Playboy West. So that's where Chicago gets the name Playboy East, LA's Playboy West, and he officially moved out in 1974. So the mansion was still used by parties. Playboy Corporate was still in Chicago, so there was definitely still people out and about, just Hefner wasn't living there. He had taken some classes as a young man at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, SAIC, and so he wanted to give back. He was very much into giving back to the community, and in that way he leased it to the school for 5 years at $10 a year. And this is how we got the fashion class in the pool, the found Playboy bunny costumes, and students got to live in the dormitories. I hope with fewer rules. Yeah, anyway. So in 1993, the lease was up, and the building was purchased by a real estate developer who turned the first Playboy mansion into high-end condos. So you go for a stroll on the Gold Coast, you look up, and you see a really heavily guarded mansion. One of many, by the way. But one of them is the former Playboy mansion. And this is where I ask you, do you have a friend who lives there? Let me know. Talk to me after. I would love a tour. Of the dormitories specifically. Okay, so we're still going through the rise of Playboy, right? So those bunnies needed a place to work. I'm sorry, I like calling them women who worked as bunnies. Those women who worked as bunnies needed a place to work, and that was the first ever Playboy Club at 116 East Walton Street. Yeah, I know. Not too far. All right, so it opened its doors on Leap Day, February 29th, 1960, and it was a membership-style club. So only those who were members would have keys. You could only get in if you were with a member who had a key, or you were the member with the key, and they were all men. They were mostly men, excuse me. And this style was copied after the Gaslight Club, which was very popular in Chicago. Similar sort of vibe with the membership key. The women who were serving had cute little outfits, not a lot there. So it was a similar format, so it wasn't totally foreign to the folks of Chicago at the time. This club covered several floors. It included bars, live music, and top performers from the day, and a buffet. Have loved a buffet. Who doesn't love a buffet? Russell Miller, author of Bunny, The Real Story of Playboy, described the club like this. Each of 4 floors was designed as a room in a mythical and fabulous bachelor pad. There was a playroom, a penthouse, a library, and a living room. Teak and leather furniture, wood paneled walls, and rich autumnal shades prevailed in the decor. Playboy Magazine was in evidence everywhere, from framed original cartoons in the cartoon corner of the living room to huge backlit photos of playmates in the Playmate bar. To clarify here some terminology, a woman who worked at a club was a bunny. A woman who posed in the magazine was a playmate. There was some crossover. So, according to Gloria Steinem's piece, if a woman was introducing herself to a customer and she was a bunny, she would say so. But if she worked as a playmate, she would introduce herself as a playmate, and that was what the overarching trumping was of the titles. In its first year, the Playboy Club membership exceeded 50,000 and saw performers such as Mel Torme, Barbra Streisand. Yeah, she was just down the street visiting Playboy Mansion, so why not? Oh, and a young Aretha Franklin. She was only 19. Wow. I know, I want to go back in time for that too. Yeah. Today, the building that housed the Playboy Club is no longer there. The club was there for 20 years, though, from 1960 to 1980. It wasn't the last Playboy Club in Chicago, but I won't get ahead of myself there. The building that's there today is the One Magnificent Mile building. Let's move over to Playboy Corporate. Alrighty, so the last we left off with the Playboy offices, it was on Ohio Street, and that was the one next to the Mies van der Rohe's office. But they kept expanding with the, increasing circulation of the magazine, with an international presence, franchising of the clubs. They needed more space. So in 1965, they moved to the Palmolive building. So this is a Holabird and Root building completed in 1929. With the time it was completed, it was home to the Colgate Palmolive Peet Corporation, the people who make the good toothpaste. Yeah. I know, I told Patty I would have so many controversial takes today. Crest versus Colgate. All right, I digress. So this building is also famous for its Lindenberg beacon, also known as a big, tall light that goes like this. Yes, exactly. And it was because the Palmolive building was so tall and nothing else was around it at the time it was built, this light would direct pilots across Lake Michigan to Midway. So by 1965, Playboy had moved in, and because they were occupying floors 4 through 12, they got the naming rights. So now we had the Playboy building, complete with 9-foot-tall white lettering on the south face of the building, glowing for all to see. Glorious. Let's see. So this was their editorial and business offices, and this is where Playboy was run for those few years, 1965 to 1988. Today, but there was some controversy here. Controversy everywhere. That Lindenberg beacon was great. I mean, it was shining, but here's the thing. All the buildings around it were building up and up and up. And suddenly, the Playboy building wasn't the tallest building in the neighborhood anymore. And the neighbors weren't super happy to have a light meant to direct pilots across Lake Michigan shining into their living room. So during Playboy's tenure, in 1981, they turned off the Lindenberg beacon. But Playboy did vacate in 1988, and the building was converted to high-end condos. Now the first 2 floors are offices and high-end retailers. It's fancy. And the condos are well known as well. Vince Vaughn himself owned a 3-story penthouse in this building. He attempted to sell it for $10 million. This was like 20 years ago, too. Like, this was a while ago. He ended up subdividing and selling each for a lower price, but that's who your neighbors were. So the new owners of the building are the one that restored the original Palmolive name, and they actually got the Lindenberg beacon back working. It only shines over the lake now, so the neighbors are happy. Yeah. Okay. So so I know we don't have maps in front of us, but that Playboy building and the original club are kitty corner to each other. So that kind of area was very well known for Playboy, and they expanded more because right next door at 163 East Walton Place, that became the Playboy Towers Hotel in 1970. It was short-lived. It only lasted until 1976, but Playboy had their own presence there. They had all their ads had different itineraries, what you could do from breakfast in bed, stroll over to the club, breakfast in bed again. Glorious lifestyle. They vacated in 1976, and it then became the Knickerbocker Hotel, which is still there, and it's been renovated several times. So not a lot left of Playboy in that building, but it's still standing. So that's something. When we were talking about the original Playboy mansion, I mentioned Hef was a big movie buff. He tried to bring that into Playboy as well, because he had the clubs going well, the magazine was thriving, the hotel was great, so he was like, all right, what do I want to do now? Playboy theater. Not like theatrical, like movies. So at 1204 North Dearborn Street, the Playboy Theater was established in 1964. Now, the original theater building that was there opened in 1913 as the new Dearborn Theater, and it went through a lot of different hands. It was remodeled in 1934, renamed the Surf Theater in 1942, and then became the Playboy Theater in 1964. It was known for screening eclectic, offbeat films, more indie stuff, we would call it today, and some Playboy originals, such as The Naked Apple. I don't know what kind of film that is, and I didn't want to Google it. Proceed with caution, folks. Browser history follows you, okay? These films didn't do well at all. Not well at all. The positive of it, though, is that this theater was a location during the early days of the Chicago International Film Festival. But again, like a lot of things in the 70s, like a lot of things for Playboy in the 70s, it didn't quite make it. So by 1976, the theater was out. It was renamed the Chelix Theater, and then later again to the Sandberg Theater in the 70s. And then finally, in 1983, what we all know and love, Walgreens. Walgreens raised the building. The beautiful old theater from 1913 raised it, and it's now a 24-hour Walgreens. But this isn't just any Walgreens. It's the 1,000th location of Walgreens. Film star Cary Grant was there at the opening.
Oh my God.
I know. Raise a theater and bring in Cary Grant and everyone's happy. So an earlier attempt of Hef to, work on his film side, but also continue to share the good word and message of Playboy in the American home, was with his TV series called Playboy Penthouse. And this was filmed at 190 North State Street, and it was a short-lived series, 1959 to 1961. And it was a variety-style talk show, and it started with a storyline of you, the viewer, are a guest at Hugh Hefner's party, and it's in this penthouse of this mid-century modern high-rise, and it's swanky, it's cool. You walk in, and it's just a bunch of cool dudes with a woman on their arm, because women are accessories. Yeah, just really cool stuff here. But there actually were some great musical guests at this show. Nat King Cole, Sammy Davis Jr., again, and Ella Fitzgerald were all performers. Pause here to just say Hef was a huge advocate of the civil rights movement, and he strived to bring a diverse and inclusive content to the magazine and performers to the clubs, as well as bringing them into America's living rooms through the Playboy Penthouse TV show. He also I watched all these, most of their episodes are available on YouTube, and he brought in if you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. So he brought in a activist against the Vietnam War, whose husband was in jail for not turning in his draft card. So that was, I say the women were accessories, but he also would have women guests where he would give them a voice and a platform to share what they were doing, what was important, and she was very impactful, and definitely a hard time in American history for sure. So, and this was, all seen throughout the lifetime of Playboy. Excuse me. All right, let's get back to the clubs. Let's lighten up a bit. So last we left off, we were leaving the original Playboy Club in 1980. And they didn't quite know where they were going to go. See, in the 1980s, Playboy wasn't thriving like it had been in the 60s. This new generation of baby boomer men who were in their 20s just weren't really clicking with the brand. So Playboy was trying to reevaluate what kind of clubs they would have. And so when they closed down the one on Walton Street, the idea was that there would be 2 Playboy clubs in Chicago. The first being a kind of clubby vibe on Rush Street. Pause for effect.
Oh, the Viagra Triangle.
Yes, Joanne, that is the Viagra Triangle. That is exactly where that is. And the other being a more intimate jazz club with a neighborhood vibe. Maybe this would be in an airport. And this is what worried the residents of Lincoln Park Towers. So 1960 North Lincoln Park West, also known as Lincoln Park Towers, is a high-rise condo that has had on the second floor a retail space. When the building opened in 1968, this was the Flame East, from what I've read, wonderful restaurant. Short-lived, though. By 1970, it was Richard's Four Torches, a high-end, amazing restaurant frequented by none other than the one, the only, Frank Sinatra. Yeah. So I interviewed a woman who lived in Lincoln Park Towers at the time, Peg Quinn. And she was one of the many single young women who lived in Lincoln Park Towers. It was one of the few buildings that really had the reputation of being a welcoming and inclusive place to single women at the time to live on their own. So the deal was with the host of Four Torches was that when Frank Sinatra came in, they locked the door. They didn't want the press getting in. They wouldn't want him mobbed, with all the celebrity status, but they didn't want the place empty. Well, guess who lived right upstairs? Peg and all her friends. She was a model, by the way. Not for Playboy. So what the host would do is he would lock the door, call up, and say, "Hey, you guys can come down and drink with Frank," and they would do that. So, I know, right? Very cool. So Frank Sinatra was beloved by Hef. He would talk about him a lot on Playboy Penthouse. He very much fit into Hef's bachelor lifestyle that he was marketing for himself through his brand. So when Four Torches conveniently vacated the premises of Lincoln Park Towers in 1980, Hefner saw an opening. And there started being some whispers that the Playboy Club wanted to move into Lincoln Park Towers. The neighbors were not thrilled. They were not thrilled. This was a upstanding condo with a very strong association that was worried about a couple things, mainly congestion. So Playboy, trying to be ambassadors of goodwill, came to the condo board and said, "Hey, we have some concessions for you. We really want to be good neighbors. We'll put in parking." They also installed a taxi light, which is still there today. And they offered a special incentive. Remember those Playboy keys? So Playboy keys, membership keys, were physical keys until about the 1980s. And then they turned into credit cards. I'm just going to show this around.
Is that a real one?
Yes, this is a real membership key. I will not be passing it around, but you can come see it after. Where did I get this? Well, one resident of Lincoln Park Towers was Jim Sobieraj. If that name sounds familiar, that's my dad. He saved this for me. He knew.
Wow. Love it.
Jim.
So he is watching at home, so you can't say, "Hi, Dad." So, okay, before you start getting thoughts about my father, this was not his vibe, okay? He wasn't a Playboy type of dude.
We couldn't be here without you.
Thank you. So he was a resident at the time. He had bought the unit. He had proposed to my mom. They were living together there. But his name was on the condo, so he was the one who got the card. Now this honorary car key it's kind of hard. It's like a brassy goldish color. If you go to Chicago History Museum, they have an actual Playboy credit card like this, and it's silver. So, I don't know, it seemed kind of funny that the actual one is silver, but the fake, like the honorary one is gold. Okay, interesting. So as part of his duties as president of the condo board, my dad did go into the Playboy Club.
Duty bound.
He was duty bound, and guys, I really cannot stress enough that he's not
here.
He's watching at home. It just generally wasn't, because that was the thing. That was why Playboy was failing, though, is because they were unable to adjust their brand to appeal to the male baby boomers. So, I won't directly quote him, but he's not exactly complimentary of a man who dressed in pajamas and slept with women his daughter's age. It's not exactly the vibe. So this club, it did okay. It wasn't great. For being the second location of the flagship Playboy Club, they really expected it to thrive. They kind of floundered because it only lasted 6 years. And Hefner never visited this club. He was supposed to once, but the AC broke. Shame. So, for folks watching at home, we have a very lively audience today. Very complimentary of a man who wears pajamas. Anyway, so that was the last Playboy Club in Chicago. Playboy's hometown. The one on Rush Street never opened. They weren't able to really materialize that. The clubs had franchised. They were all over the country, and almost none of them were profitable. In fact, the one club that spun enough profit to keep the rest alive was London, England, because they had gambling. That's about it. But they couldn't really adopt that into the U.S. version. There's a whole side plot about Vegas, but it's not Chicago, so I'm not talking about it. But there were whispers, folks, of one more club. So in 2011, there was a new Playboy TV show coming out, and it was on NBC. And going along with this, there were some articles that another Playboy Club was coming to our hometown of Chicago, again on the north side, specifically at 1150 North Dearborn. Now, this was known as the Biggs Mansion. It was originally constructed by prominent architect Edward Burling, and it was for Quinn DeKoven. Now, Quinn DeKoven was a banker and a co-founder of Northern Trust. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should. So there's a street named after DeKoven, and another very famous family lived on that street, the O'Learys. That's right, folks. This is exactly where the Great Chicago Fire started in 1871. And just 3 years later, Quinn DeKoven's Northside Mansion was completed. And he also died here in 1898, so I'm just going to say probably haunted, which is exactly what you want in a Playboy Club. So 50 years later, Joseph Biggs, a society caterer, purchased the mansion, and it became a private dining room, hence Biggs Mansion. But by 1964, he opened it to the public as a restaurant. Now, by the time Playboy was sniffing around in 2011, scoping it out, there was a different restaurant in this location, Il Molino. And, the neighbors weren't thrilled. Now, we've heard about neighbors complaining about Playboy before. They got the Lindenberg beacon shut off, but they didn't stop the club coming to Lincoln Park Towers. So it's a 50-50 here. But these neighbors had learned from the previous generations, and they threw a fit. Like, they were not having it. So despite articles in Crain's Chicago, Black Club Chicago saying, oh yeah, club's definitely opening, Q1 2012, folks, 20 years later, we're getting back the Playboy Club. Yeah, no, never came back. The Playboy TV show, dead after 3 episodes. Playboy just could not adapt to the next generation or the generation after of consumers. I mean, they tried. Some of their clubs in New York had male bunnies called rabbits, but they got to wear sweaters. Yeah, guys, look up the pictures. They wore sweaters, and those sweaters weren't 2 inches too small. They were comfortable. It's not the same.
Bill Cosby-ish? Like Bill Cosby-ish sweaters?
Not Bill Cosby-ish sweaters, no. More like a distinguished V-neck with no arms kind of sweater. I know. It's not the same appeal. Again, Playboy was really good at appealing to the male gaze. They did not adapt the female gaze soon enough to profit and expand their buyer base. But they still had a couple more places in Chicago they called home. Specifically, 680 North Lakeshore Drive. This is known as the last Playboy office. Although at the time, when they moved there in 1988 from the Palmolive Playboy building, it was then known as New Playboy. So this building was completed in 1926, and it was named the American Furniture Mart. At the time, it was the largest building in the world. And it actually was completed in 2 parts with 2 separate architects, so it kind of came together. Pretty cool. It was converted into condos and offices in 1979, and the address was changed. See, the original address was 666 North Lakeshore Drive. Yeah. So there were rumors that Playboy had a hand in changing the address to 680. Playboy said absolutely not. We were not involved in that decision. But they did move their offices there a few months after the address was changed. So, and this move was done under the leadership of Christy Hefner. Friendly reminder, this is his daughter from his first marriage with Millie, born in, actually I won't say when she was born, she's still a very prominent person in Chicago. You can see her around actually. And she was a fabulous leader at the helm of Playboy. I mean, she wasn't given much to work with because Playboy was definitely still on the started a strong decline before she took the helm, but she definitely kept it afloat and revitalized the brand while she was there. So when they opened that office, they did a massive rehaul. And if you want to see some prime late 1980s, early 1990s architecture and office layouts, I highly recommend visiting your friends at the Chicago History Museum Archives, because they have the special edition Playboy that was only handed out during the welcome party. Their pictures are in your packets. And it has my favorite centerfold. All their employees just smiling, fully clothed. You know, it's just shake it up a little bit, you know? Do something different. And I do want to take this time to do a special thank you to all the folks at the Chicago History Museum Archives. They were amazingly helpful when putting together research for this talk. So many pictures of your packet came from pictures I was allowed to take of the artifacts they have. I also read my first ever Playboy articles in the Chicago History Museum archive room. Yeah.
They have articles?
Yeah, Playboy had articles. I thought it was a joke, guys. Playboy actually had great articles. I read an interview with the Beatles. They had an amazing feature about the Everlake Club. If you want to learn more about that, check out our recordings from our brothels talk from earlier this year. But that was the new Playboy building, but it wasn't going to last forever because, folks, by 2012, the doors were shut and they moved to California. I know, traitors. But the brand would needed to downsize, and Hefner was in California, and they downsized. What can I say? But that's not the last landmark of Playboy to grace our shores. That would be the honorary Hugh M. Hefner Way sign. So at the start of the millennium, in the year 2000, thank you. Yeah. Cheers. So in the year 2000, there was a motion put forth to put a honorary Hugh M. Hefner Way sign on the Magnificent Mile. And again, folks, we have a controversy. That is way too important a street for such a controversial man as Hugh M. Hefner. So, after a lot of aldermen stomped their feet and did not want this, and I full respect to those aldermen. I did not want the Mag Mile to be Hugh M. Hefner Way either. Like, no. It was decided that there was another street of equal importance to Playboy not too far. So the intersection of the Mag Mile and Walton Street and Walton Place was Hugh M. Hefner Way in the year 2000. You have a picture in your packet, but I learned the hard way last night when I literally ran over there after work. The sign's not there anymore. Yeah, and that's when I learned that honorary street signs in Chicago are only for 5 years. Yeah, they're only for 5 years. You can extend them for an additional 5, but I don't know if this was extended. I know it was stolen a couple times. So, check your basements, folks. You have one of those. Hold on to it. Hold on real tight. And also, it was one of the last, if not the last, honorary street sign in Chicago that went to a living person. The rules now is that the person has to be dead. Hugh Hefner has passed away since then. So yeah, Playboy. Controversial entity, but it's from Chicago.
And her dad.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate y'all being out here tonight. Do we have time? Okay, before we take questions, I just want to reiterate, Chicago is the biggest small town you'll ever live in. We're a bunch of neighbors. Most of us are locals, so let's keep the questions super respectful. Thank you. Okay. Hope I didn't scare you off. Who has a question? Aaron.
When did Hugh divorce Millie?
That would be in 1957.
Whoa.
So So the question was, when did Hugh Hefner and Millie, his first wife, divorce? So to put this all into perspective, so first issue came out in 1959. He's in the offices by 1954. So 3 years later and 2 kids later is when they get divorced.
And he had a second wife? Because you keep saying first wife.
Yeah, okay, the question was, why do I keep saying first wife? He had several wives, and he had children with more than one wife. He very much got into the polygamy in the later part of life, but accounts from women who were around Hef in his early days was that it was monogamy, but back to back.
What
Jen.
about his son with Christy? Christy was a sibling, right?
Yes, so the question is, what's the dynamic between Christy and her brother? Good question. Not sure. So Christy is prominent in the Chicago business scene. She is very much involved with helping our city, bettering our city, just a fabulous, wonderful businesswoman. I think her brother stayed below the radar because he's not really mentioned. I actually don't even know his name from my research. They just said, and brother. Yeah. John Finley.
Dumb one. I don't know, and I don't care. What's the relationship to Playgirl?
That's a great question. John Finley wants to know, what's the relationship between Playboy and Playgirl?
Yeah.
I'm going to take a guess here.
Yeah.
So Playboy had multiple publications, Playboy being the original, the second being We, which was a much more full frontal publication from France, hence We. So my guess would be that Playgirl, because in the 80s, Playboy was making the push to get more women to be members. They really wanted women to be members of the club specifically. That's why they brought the rabbits in. My guess is that would be how we got Playgirl.
I always heard they were completely unaffiliated.
Oh, okay, we've been corrected.
That's what I've
We've been
heard.
corrected. No, that's fair. The source is Adam Seltzer, who is incredibly famous. Guys, they're not affiliated. Thank you, Adam. Any other questions, comments, personal? Oh, Jesse, hey.
Can you speak more to the Gloria Steinem going undercover? I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Sure. So the question is, can I speak more to the Gloria Steinem going undercover? Absolutely. So this was for the New York club in the, I want to say the 60s, but I'm not, in the 60s? In the 60s. So she was hired by Show Magazine to apply to be a Playboy bunny. There was an open casting call. And she wrote a straightforward, to the point, no punches held, 2-part article about the process of going to apply, being hired pretty much on the spot, the training. It was unpaid. The false advertising. Advertisement said that bunnies would get $200 to $500 a week. She barely broke 70. And that was still working long shifts, long hours, enough so that she had to size up her shoes 2 sizes, which she had to pay for. The shoe part of the Playboy bunny costume that had to be dyed specifically to the color of your costume, they didn't pay for that. She talked about her long eyelash extensions, 3 inches. I know they're pretty popular today, but at the time it was not as popular. And she talked about working coat checks. So men would come in with their wives or their girlfriends, and it was interesting hearing how that interaction went down, because Steinem said she felt kind of like a clown in the makeup, but the men were enamored, and someone would look at her and be like, "Girl, I know you're wearing 3-inch long eyelashes. Come on, that's not comfortable." She exposed that the tips were not kept by the bunnies. Playboy kept the tips. They did a sliding percentage scale, but full story is they kept the tips. So she lasted like 2 weeks, maybe less. She worked at the coat check first. She also did a lot of tables. She worked the lunch rush, the dinner rush. She talked about how strenuous and hard it was on her body. And yeah, that's what happened. And that's how we know the costumes were so small. They were stuffed. Also, the legs were so high, her hip bones were exposed.
Oh my gosh.
I have an internet question.
Internet question, yes?
Besides Shel Silverstein, who were some of the other famous Playboy authors?
Ooh,
Authors.
good one.
That's a great one. Oh wow, that's a great one. Off the top of my head. Can't name drop, but pretty much everyone. But that's a great internet question. I'll look that up. Thank you. Steph?
Stephanie Sims must have a good question.
Steph?
True.
She always does.
So you've talked about a few of the famous black singers who've been at the Playboy Mansion, but were there like black patrons? Were people of color welcomed in the space?
That's a great question. So Steph wants to know, the Playboy clubs had, Steph wants to know if there was a diverse clientele for the Playboy clubs. There were, because they did promote civil rights movement through their singing acts and their entertainment. There were bunnies of every race. As far as members, mostly white men. Yeah, mostly white men. And if you watch Playboy Penthouse, where they're casting to try to show who they want at their clubs, white men. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, personal Playboy connections? A few weeks ago, there was a woman here who worked for Playboy Corporate, and she loved it. She said it was great. Super supportive environment. Did not feel like she was at a disadvantage being a woman at Playboy. So I wanted to share that there are 2 sides to every story. Oh, Steph?
So the photographs in Playboy, did they do these photo shoots in the club or in the corporate offices? Was there other locations?
Yeah, Steph wants to know if the photos in Playboy were taken at the club, at the offices, or other locations. And the answer is yes, all of the above. There were playmates who in the early 2000s would, it was preferred, according to the articles I read, it was preferred to shoot in LA, but they would fly women back to Chicago to shoot there because they still had offices and sets, but they would, the idea of Playboy was I was the girl next door and that she's approachable. And what more approachable than seeing a girl in the centerfold who then you could go order a drink from in the Playboy Club. Virginia?
So I have a little personal story about Playboy Magazine.
Ooh.
In the late 1990s, our sister business, Trader Todd's, was in the Gold Coast. And we had a lot of Playboy employees who would hang out at the bar. And I don't know which issue it was, but I think it was 1998. Trader Todd's was featured in the campus buzz section as a
The?
Northwestern hangout and a quote-unquote great place for karaoke. And, you know, I don't know if Room 13 would be here today without Playboy Magazine. So.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, okay, so I'm just going to paraphrase for our friends viewing at home. So the question came from Virginia, who is our wonderful patron of this beautiful established Room 13, and her husband also owned Trader Todd's. Now, Trader Todd's original location in the 90s was in the Gold Coast, and former Playboy employees would hang out there. And so, very impressed, because if you haven't been, Trader Todd's, top of the line, highly recommend, great experience. Same in the 90s, and the Playboy employees wrote about it in the campus buzz section, about it was a great place to hang out, it was the place to be, and as it is today, a great place for karaoke. So, Room 13 is here because of Playboy. So, man, that is the good. All right.
Do you know anything about the Sardine Club in the old Playboy building?
Yeah, so the question is, do I know anything about the Sardine Club in the old Playboy building? And by old Playboy building, that would be their last offices at 680 North Lakeshore Drive. You know, it was a fancy club, and they had a lot of fancy people there, and John Finley said it was tiny.
It was really, really tiny.
John Finley says it's very small, so that's why I know about the Sardine Club. Sardine Club was not a part of Playboy, no. But good question. Hi.
Hi. So you've done a lot of research on this stuff. I'm curious about your opinion now. Like, there's all this controversy, positive, negative. Would you say that Hugh Hefner was more of a positive influence in the city, negative, or somewhere in the middle?
That is a really good question. So, the question is about my personal opinion of Hugh Hefner's impact on the city, based on my research. If we're going to narrow it down to just the city, I would say overall positive. And I do keep that as just the city. No, okay, to be fair, you know, just to really hammer home, he was a champion of the civil rights movement. He did so much to ensure that women had access to free and affordable life-saving healthcare services through abortion, and that was all done through his foundation called the Playboy Foundation. That said, I also believe survivors, the women who have written or have bravely shared their accounts about the abuse they suffered under Playboy and or Hefner. I hear them, I see them, and yeah, definitely a controversial character, for sure. Let me put it this way, I wouldn't let him hold my drink.
Fair.
Well put.
Thank you. Any other questions? Steph?
Well, I know that Playboy coined the term bachelor pad.
Yes.
Can you speak to any connections between I would say the mid-century modern aesthetic that's associated with bachelor pad and Playboy?
Sure. So Steph asked, with Playboy coining the phrase bachelor pad, can I speak to the relationship between mid-century modern aesthetic or style and the term bachelor? I can. I will say that the Elmhurst History Museum had an amazing exhibit about this a few years ago, and if you want to read the pamphlet that talks all about this, go to the Chicago History Museum archives. But I would say that Hefner was very much influenced by mid-century modern aesthetic, and he brought that into the magazine. He was a big fan of the butterfly chair, the womb chair. He featured them in his magazines, and he even would take the layout of like an open concept mid-century modern apartment. And, okay, this part I hate. Playboy did a whole how-to guide for how to get a woman to sleep with you by bringing her home with you and entertaining her throughout your apartment. Like, this is where you serve her a drink. This is where you give her a snack. This is where you take her bra off. This is how you take off a bra. So, yeah, the good with the bad. Yeah. Anyone else?
We did have an office next to Mies van der Rohe, like a checks out.
Yeah, Patty did remind us that the second Playboy office was next to the Mies van der Rohe office, so, you know, hang out near who you want to be, I guess.
No.
Risa.
Did he drink a signature drink?
That's a great question.
Ooh,
Did Hugh Hefner drink a signature drink? He averaged 2 dozen Pepsis a day.
Seriously?
And he lived to his 90s, and he was having 2 dozen Pepsis a day.
Is that serious? Is that the secret?
That's the secret. That is the secret to long life, folks. 2 dozen Pepsis a day.
Pepsi, please.
Yeah. Oh, question in the back. Hi.
I've been trying to think of how to say this. So, by coincidence, the pill came out in 1950, and the first issue of Playboy came out in 1950. I don't know the timeline. Like, how much of that is just pure coincidence, or like did that happen and then they planned on coming out with this, or?
So that's a great question. So they're wondering what's the potential tie between, such coincidence between you say the pill, you mean the hormonal contraceptive pill? The 1950, the hormonal contraceptive pill came out. That did in Chicago. And then the first edition of Playboy came out in 1953, and we're wondering how they influenced each other or were related. I would categorize both of them as part of the sexual revolution that swept through America in the second half of the 20th century. So with hormonal contraceptive pills, women were gaining more and more independence and were able to have more say over their life and their future. And, men kind of came along for the ride, I guess. But Playboy specifically came from Hugh Hefner's wish to continue to be a writer. Esquire had left Chicago. He wanted to continue writing. But he wanted to empower young men to have an independent lifestyle, that bachelor lifestyle, and to share more about his passions of jazz music, design, style, good food, great interviews. When I was reading the Playboy column, they had a relationship advice column. Honestly, still kind of good today. Not totally off base with a lot of it. So I would say rather than the pill influencing Hugh Hefner, they were just 2 fish in the same wave.
Well done.
Okay.
Woo! Give her a
All right. Sorry.
I refuse to let a man talk about Playboy for the record. Always get you a nice Midwestern girl to tackle a controversial topic. It's like, you can be meaner. In case, there was a question about famous writers for Playboy, and so I did a quick Google. She's actually accurate, like, everyone famous you can think of wrote for Playboy. But it's Women's Month, right? So Margaret Atwood, author of The Handmaid's Tale, was a very famous contributor to Playboy Magazine. And then a bunch of men. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Olivia. Thank you to Oscar in the bar. If you learn one thing here tonight, it should be that you should tip your bartenders. They might be wearing a corset that's 2 sizes too small.
Go, Oscar!
Oscar's not wearing a corset that's 2 sizes too small. But speaking of tipping people generously, we are a nonprofit organization. All of our income comes from your generous donations. So if you have some cash, checks, livers, organs, any Venmo, PayPal, we take it all. We certainly do appreciate anything that you're able to contribute to our organization. It helps us put on this programming. It helps us buy drinks for our speakers when they're talking about depressing shit. And in general, it's very much appreciated. So please make a donation if you can. Steph has a cash jar for you if you want to grab it. And we hope to see you back here next week. So next week we're going to be talking about the streets of ago. We're going to be looking back 100 years ago and how the use of our streets has changed, especially with the advent of the automobile. That'll be Emma. It's going to be incredible. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have the fabulous president of our board of directors, Erica, speaking about abandoned transit. So if you are struggling to get into our sold-out events, friendly reminder, 2 weeks before every lecture, 9 a.m., that's when tickets go up for grabs. It's first come, first serve, y'all. We're equitable. Set a timer. And we hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you so much.
Patty Swanson.